Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm Bee,
And I'm Zack.
and this week we read Chapter 11 of The Battle of the Labyrinth, I Set Myself on Fire.
Oh my god, it's like a full burn here. I think where it's like Disco Inferno type of burn, baby, burn.
Burn, baby, burn. All I could think of was, I don't know if you know this, I think the band is called Stars, and they have this song called Your Ex-Lover is Dead. And the first, like, before they start singing, there's this weird audio clip of an old man going, "When there's nothing left to burn, you've got to set yourself on fire." And that's all I could think of most of this chapter.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's incredibly intense. You should look it up and just listen to it, or, like, drop the audio clip right here.
When I think of like I Set Yourself on Fire and Percy Jackson, the first thing that pops up is the meta joke in SpongeBob where they have the campfire. And they throw like, wow, this is really unrealistic to have a campfire underwater. And they throw pieces of paper into the campfire underwater.
Yeah, or you could think of the really dark real world implications of like self-immolation. People who were like, hey, here's the best way to protest. I'll set myself on fire, which don't recommend that.
In this week's chapter, we have a very interesting topic because I feel like a lot happened and nothing happened at the exact same time.
Yeah, I guess. There was like a lot of lead up.
For the most important thing, I guess, is that there's a spicy romance.
Oh, you mean between Percy and Annabeth? I mean, that was already there.
Oh, but it's getting more confirmed, I guess. I think this is where people are cheering at this point. Like,
She's kissed him before, though, at the end of that chariot race. And
but not on the lips. I thought that was like a peck on the cheek.
does it say? I don't remember, to be honest.
Oh, if she kissed him, you'd think it would be one of those. If it's I kissed you, it'd be on the lips. I don't think it would be one of those, like, kiss you on the forehead.
Yeah,
like.
exactly. So I think that she has kissed him before, but there's been a lot that's happened between them since then, so I don't know.
It's not like they're doing, like, a forehead kiss. It's not like that. It has to be square on the lips, like kissing your dad.
Yeah, like exactly like the McElroys say. Or in this case, kiss your cousin square on the lips. Let's not unpack that right now.
Well, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. So this chapter kind of opens how it usually opens, them being lost in the maze, and they're following a spider.
The spider. Yeah, and Tyson, with his amazing hearing abilities, I guess, is able to hear a slight pinging sound, and that's how they're able to find the giant hatch that leads to Hephaestus's workshop.
And it's steampunk AF.
Yeah, it's quite steampunk. The description of him and his little workshop is pretty evocative. I kept thinking of, like, the metal shop when I went to college, when I still did sculpture, because there was a distinct contingency of dumb kids who still were barefoot when they tried to weld things. Like, that was a thing that we got yelled at right off the bat, was like, hey, listen, I know you want to be barefoot in the metal shop, but you can't do that, which is basically, like, the most indicative of art school, really.
Man, I miss metal shop, but most importantly, what I miss is I miss wood shop, which they don't really have in my school anymore. Or at my high school, they used to, but I think they cut that program. But like,
That's kind of sad.
well, yeah, we had to have a multi-million-dollar pool put in, so something had to go.
Much more important. I mean, pools are more fun than doing woodshop, to be fair, and I was a literal sculpture major.
But B, why don't you want like a little bit of like a birdhouse, or someone knows how to like actually cut wood? You know, measure twice, cut once.
And then we encounter Hephaestus, who very much is like the barefooted hipsters who I saw in the metal shop, is just sort of standing there.
They probably also looked like him too.
Not far off, I don't think. Let me read the description that Percy gives. I'd seen Hephaestus once before, briefly on Olympus, so I thought I was prepared, but his appearance made me gulp. I guess he'd cleaned up on Olympus or used magic to make his form seem a little less hideous. Here in his own workshop, he apparently didn't care how he looked. He wore a jumpsuit smeared with oil and grime. Hephaestus was embroidered over the chest pocket. His leg creaked and clicked in its metal brace as he stood, and his left shoulder was lower than his right, so he seemed to be leaning even when he was standing up straight. His head was misshapen and bulging. He wore a permanent scowl. His black beard smoked and hissed. Every once in a while, a small wildfire would erupt in his whiskers and then die out. His hands were the size of catcher's mitts, but he handled the spider with amazing skill. He disassembled it in 2 seconds, then put it back together. Very evocative imagery here.
He's not the most beautiful man in the world, but he gets the job done very well.
He's a grizzly dude, yeah. He's a pretty greasy and horrifying.
So, in my head, he actually reminds me of a Star Wars character, and I'm going to send it to you right now. Do you know what I'm about to say it, and you probably won't know until I send
Maybe.
it to you. I think of the character Pruneface from Return of the Jedi, and this is what he looks like.
No, that is definitely too deep of a cut for me to know.
And this is how I imagine what he looks like, is kind of like this kind of weird misshapen humanoid, but yet like he still gets the job done. And I kind of like the aesthetic of him being a mechanic. You don't need looks, you can be smart.
Oh, geez. Oh, that's a face, huh?
So do you agree with me that's kind of like I would imagine what he would look like?
I could kind of see that. I imagine him more hulking than that, a little bit more, I guess, muscular, but still, like, just also tall, just more imposing as a figure, but I could kind of see where you're coming from.
I feel like the way they describe him is like he is very strong, but also he's kind of frail at the same time. Like he makes up for it with like using his brain.
He has, like, that metal leg and everything.
Yes, he has Old Faithful, like his old little metal leg. It's like Treasure Planet with good old fashioned cyborg parrot man. I keep forgetting his name because it's not Long John Silver in Treasure Planet.
Isn't it? I thought it was John Silver.
Is it, oh, I guess it is John Silver.
It's just John Silver, but it's, like, not Long John Silver.
I'm sure there's people screaming at us, but like something like also like
I haven't seen that movie in a minute.
Well, apparently they're remaking it, so that's something that's happening.
I'm excited. Wait, live action or
yes, live
what?
action. That's apparently on the books.
You know what? That might work as a live action. Honestly, if you did like a lot of cool practical effects with robots and stuff, that'd be awesome.
Oh, there won't be practical effects. It'll be all digital, B. You're too optimistic.
Yeah, I know. Listen, don't crush my dreams.
But yeah, I like this encounter with him because he isn't like all the other gods. Like he's really busy, like he's really hyper focused on his work, and he doesn't have people skills. Whereas God kind of be like, "Meh, worship me, please give me attention."
Yeah, he doesn't have that sense of self-aggrandizement, but also he's interesting because he's like not necessarily friendly to them, but he's not overtly hostile. He's kind of this weird in between where he's like, oh, these demigods always making promises, before they know what they're getting themselves into. And he has like sort of a different tone depending on who he's talking to. He's not thrilled about demigods. He really doesn't like satyrs. And then of course he's like happy to see Tyson. He's like, oh, a nice young Cyclops. What are you doing with this lot? And then oh man, I almost just called him Cyclops, which seems reductive. And then Tyson just sort of looks at him blankly and he's like, well said.
Cyclops, this is my Cyclops.
Which I thought was funny. I think that would transfer really well into like an adaptation, like a TV show or a movie where, just the awkward silence of Tyson standing there and him being like, well said, young man. I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah. And I like how, like, even within this chapter, you see, like, the gods aren't quite fair because they talk about the origin of Hephaestus and how it was Hera who kind of deformed him. It wasn't really Zeus. And it gives a more sinister nature to kind of Hera as well because she's the one that told him to go meet Hephaestus.
Look at my loving mother, Hera. You met her, didn't you? She'll smile to your face and talk about how important family is, eh? Didn't stop her from pitching me off Mount Olympus when she saw my ugly face. But I thought Zeus did that to you, I said. Hephaestus cleared his throat and spat into a bronze spittoon. He snapped his fingers, and the robotic falcon flew back to the work table. Mother likes telling that version of the story, he grumbled. Makes her seem more likable, doesn't it? Blaming it all on my dad. The truth is, my mother likes families, but she likes a certain kind of family, perfect families. She took one look at me and, well, I don't fit the image, do I? A very sad backstory, honestly, for this guy.
It goes back to the idea again of like the oral tradition and how things kind of change. It went from Hera to Zeus.
Right, yeah, we've discussed that a little bit before, I think, of how, like, different stories are told about different gods and how the interpretation changes over time and like different gods favor different narratives in the way that they're presented. I can't think of a specific example, but we've definitely touched on this before where the quote unquote canon idea of what happened isn't necessarily what actually happened, which is kind of really interesting to me that this is like, oh yeah, of course, mythology is a real thing that happened, but our memory of it and what has been told might not necessarily be true or 100% true.
I reject your reality and substitute my own type of a philosophy.
Doesn't Adam Savage say that in the Mythbusters?
Yes, he does. That's why I was so obsessed with Mythbusters. Like Adam Savage would play Hephaestus. There you go.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a similar energy. Honest, actually, no, he's more like Jamie Hyneman, if we're being honest, because he's more like
Everything
standoffish.
sucks.
He's like, get out of here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, here's a weird thing that I noticed in this chapter as well is that all the ugly, deformed characters are the most creative. Like they build stuff.
Yeah, or like the most useful, yeah. Or I guess not necessarily, because there's different kinds of strengths and weaknesses in this universe. Like, I think a lot of the demigods either have brute strength or they have strength of the mind, which, I mean, we're going to get into all sorts of stuff with Annabeth later on. But as far as being able to create things, I do think that a lot of times it's the monsters who are characterized that way. I could be wrong. I can't really think of anybody.
No, that sounds about right because we have like the seal dog people in this and they're like really ugly.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, we'll get
There's
to
a
them
lot of like
too.
we'll get to. But I do enjoy this interaction. I love the creativity of kind of his workshop. I like how once again Rick Riordan kind of mixes and molds things like Festus is working on a Ford Corolla, and I love that. Like he's working on a car, and he doesn't really want to talk to them, but he's forced to because you have to play by the ancient traditions. And pretty much he tells them like, I don't want to tell you anything about Daedalus unless you help me. It's like, oh, here comes a fetch quest, everybody.
Yeah, this felt very video game to me for sure. Just the sort of tit for tat, like, hey, I'll do you a good turn if you do me a good turn kind of thing. Even the setting, I felt like I was watching a cutscene in the recent God of War. You know what I mean? It just was very like you're meeting this mythical creature in his context, and he's giving you like a fetch quest to do, and then he'll help you with something. We also get a little bit of a hint of how he feels about Daedalus now. Like he doesn't think he's a good person anymore. What does he say about him?
That old crazy coot.
Daedalus, the god roared. You want that old scoundrel? You dare seek him out? His beard burst into flames and his black eyes glowed. Yes, sir, please, Annabeth said. Humph, you're wasting your time. He frowned at something on his work table and limped over to it. He picked up a lump of springs and metal plates and tinkered with them. In a few seconds, he was holding a bronze and silver falcon. It spread its metal wings, blinked its obsidian eyes, and flew around the room. Tyson laughed and clapped his hands. The bird landed on Tyson's shoulder and nipped his ear affectionately. Hephaestus regarded him. The god's scowl didn't change, but I thought I saw a kinder twinkle in his eyes. Yeah, so he sounds pretty negative about Hephaestus. There's a few other moments where Hephaestus sounds pretty negative about Daedalus, and there's just different one-off things he says about him, that he's grown callous or something. I can't find it now, exactly what he says.
It's like here, this is the thought. Is that I'm sure Daedalus is kind of like a shut-in and pretty much creates abominations or creates things that no one's going to benefit with because he's just going to be in the middle of the maze. But also there's like weird things that Hephaestus is also paranoid because he's like, are you guys really demigods? Aren't you guys could be automatons? Like he's like, it's like a weird, like, was it Detroit Become Human? It's like, I don't know if you're like, it's like synthetics.
Yeah, well, Daedalus, as we've established, has all sorts of messed up trauma because he literally kills his nephew in like that weird vision that Percy has. Like there's all sorts of dark stuff going on with Daedalus, which makes sense because he's like imprisoned and he's kind of forced to use his abilities in a way that's kind of horrifying. He has a lot of issues.
Well, he's trying to protect himself. He's doing, it's like literally it's fight or flight.
Oh, this is the other thing that Hephaestus says about Daedalus. And I told you, boy, looking for Daedalus is a waste of time. He won't help you. Hephaestus shrugged. Some of us get thrown off mountainsides. Some of us, the way we learn not to trust people is more painful. Ask me for gold, or a flaming sword, or a magical steed. These I can grant you easily, but away to Daedalus, that's an expensive favor. So it's kind of weird and complicated because he is sort of willing to work with them and give them an idea of where Daedalus is, because I guess he knows, but he doesn't think it's a good idea. So that he doesn't trust people is how he's characterizing him. And there's other, I guess, characterizations of him that he's not willing to help anybody, which I'm kind of imagining that scenario coming true.
It does make sense because here's the thing. Do you remember in The Lightning Thief when they had to go to the water park? Who was the main villain of the water park?
Ares?
No.
Oh, it was right. It was Hephaestus because he made the spiders, right?
No, it was the Cupids. It was the ugly Cupids.
Oh, wait. Okay. So wait, when did they meet the spiders? That was in Denver, actually, because they mentioned that in this chapter.
Yeah, they met the spiders, but it was also like, so Hephaestus is kind of this person because remember he also is technically married to Aphrodite, but Ares and Aphrodite like date and
Have a weird
stuff.
thing. Yeah, it's a whole
Yeah,
weird
see, isn't this like
setup.
weird when you think about it? It's like, oh wait, there's like this weird thing. There's a reason why Hephaestus doesn't trust anybody because everyone in his life has betrayed him. You've all betrayed me.
Yeah, I mean, all the Greek god stuff is incredibly like sort of a soap opera, but that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years because there's all this existing drama between all of the gods and the demigods and these different pacts and promises that they make and break and don't fulfill and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see that play out in a modern setting because they still hold on to these grudges. I mean, Hephaestus is literally like, yeah, remember thousands of years ago when I was, pushed off a mountainside? I still remember that, and that has, determined my character for the rest of my life.
You know what's a missed opportunity in this chapter, B? Mm-hmm. That who invented the giant robot that killed Bianca?
Yeah, I mean, they do mention that, right?
They mentioned that. What if Nico went on this side of the quest? Would he blame? Because I guess it would be like just like a domino effect. Would he blame
Of
Hephaestus?
him blaming everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, blaming everybody. Again, as I said before, that's like a missed opportunity. But even when it comes to Hephaestus, he isn't a bad guy. He's in his own world, and he's been like kind of like messed over so many times. And I like that, he even gives them a shot like, hey, here's this thing that I need you to do for me. Pretty much, I think some people are using my forges in Mount St. Helen, and I need you to investigate this because every time I go and things kind of happen and it's crazy.
Do you think that he believes they'll succeed? Because I have a suspicion that the way that he goes about it, he's like, oh, well, I keep sending automatons, and they're more hardy than demigods, and they tend to not come back, so they're being destroyed by something. And I know that somebody's using these forges, I don't know who. And so it's kind of like this loophole where if they help him, and that's good for him. But if they don't, then he kind of doesn't have to keep up his side of the bargain and tell them where Daedalus is because he thinks it's sort of a fool's errand. Even if he knows where Daedalus is, it's a bad idea to find him.
It's very Wizard of Oz because the wizard pretty much does the exact same type of thing. It's like, Dorothy and friends, go kill the Wicked Witch of the West.
Thinking it won't
I'll
happen,
help
kind
you.
of?
Well, yeah, because it's like it's easier for them because he's a fraud. So it's easier for them to get themselves killed than him killing them.
Right, exactly. Because he just wants to wash his hands of the whole situation.
And what ends up happening, B, when Dorothy and all the gang decide to come back after killing the Wicked Witch of the West, what happens?
He's like, sorry, gotta go. Like, it's really awkward about it. And then, of course, it's revealed that he's not even the wizard he says he is and stuff. So I guess it's kind of like
he's James Franco.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a second.
Wait, no, not quite.
But yeah, I do like this portion of the chapter because it kind of ends up being like, okay, so we have to go on this quest, meaning we have to move from one part of the labyrinth to the next. Because this entire thing, yes, it isn't like cross country; it's like subterranean cross country at times.
Yeah, and also it's different because time moves differently, and like we've established, in such a short period of time, they go from the camp all the way to San Francisco, something that took the entire length of a book last time when they were traveling across the country. Now it just seems like the blink of an eye. So it's, it's not really about getting to one destination physically in America. It's more about like the weird changing nature of the labyrinth and how unpredictable that is. We're also going to get to how that ends up helping or maybe hurting Grover. We don't know yet later on in this chapter.
I feel like the official motto for the labyrinth should be the journey beats the destination.
Yeah, because it's truly the journey.
You're more likely to do the journey than rather getting to the destination because you don't know where the truck you're going. Even in this chapter, they kind of like, even like where they're going to be going is they're going to be going to Mount St. Helens, which is in Washington, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so. It's like all over the place where they're going. And it doesn't really matter where they are physically.
God, it's like, I always think about like in Game of Thrones, well, until the last season. Actually, before that, I think even the season before that, everything had to deal with time because it's like, oh my God, we have to get from one place to the other and it might take 2 or 3 weeks. And within the last few seasons, people are just getting places instantaneously. It's like as if there isn't travel. They're fast traveling, and it really bothers the story.
Well, because they already unlocked that part of the map.
Oh, yeah, they did. So like all of a sudden Daenerys is flying, and all of a sudden a bunch of spooky enemies appear, and you're just like, wait, how did they even remotely get here? And like, oh wait, we're all idiots, or maybe hack screenwriting.
Yeah.
Oh wait, did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
But what kind of ends up happening is they decide to accept this quest. Like they accept it so instantaneously that even Hephaestus is like, wait, oh man, you guys are really going in there. Like you're really rash when it comes to like you're gonna do a quest that's like if you jump off a cliff, would your friends do it? And they'd be like, yeah, of course.
I think he's sort of amused by this, like even though he thinks it's really dumb that they're very quick to just agree to whatever, but he's sort of like, you demigods, I know exactly what to expect from you. I suggest something really dangerous and you don't even know all the details and you're immediately volunteering to do it.
Like most teenagers.
Yeah, sort of. If teenagers had magical powers, maybe they would also act like this.
Oh, they would. This is like a scientific fact. Haven't you watched any superhero movie?
Yeah, except for me, because I was very anxious as a teen. I wouldn't have done any of this type of stuff.
As a teenager, I went to work on a movie where I ended up where I slept was where they kept bodies at a morgue. And I was like, oh, of course they would.
Didn't you also film something on the set of a graveyard?
Oh yeah, I had to dig a grave and then I had to like walk back, which was about like a mile in the graveyard just by myself. No one's remotely near me, and I only have like a pen flashlight, and I'm singing "Tiptoe Through the Tulips."
Yeah, you're
so I'm
smart,
stupid.
right?
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of like coyotes out. So like if any of them were going to attack me, I'd be the most delicious thing in that graveyard. Or a spooky zombie would pop up and be like, yum, yum, num, num.
Maybe a coyote zombie. You don't know.
Oh my God, the worst type of zombie. Canadians. Oh wait, what?
We're getting sidetracked. Anyway, so Annabeth, even though she's a wise lady, sure
wise
does...
wise woman.
She sure does volunteer pretty much immediately to this very dangerous idea of going into a volcano and figuring out who the heck is using his forges when Hephaestus isn't around. So it's, kind of questionable. The only thing she cares more about than thinking things through logically is, I guess, proving her worth and doing something that might kill her. So it's kind of a, inside you are two wolves situation.
Well, yeah, she always has something to prove. Again, that goes back to her fatal flaw of hubris, is that she has to prove something even when things don't need to be proven. Because even when she's talking to Hephaestus, she's like, well, this is the reason why we need to meet Daedalus is because Luke's going to get it. Luke's this bad guy, but, I secretly love him still. But it's like, he doesn't care. He just cares about like, can you check if anyone's like using my forges without paying a fee pretty much? Like he's like a landlord. Like, have you paid the rent yet? No. Then get out of here. And what ends up happening is they start moving through the labyrinth and it's changing. It's like weird and wacky. I always think of like the stairway in like Hogwarts
in
and
Harry
how it's
Potter.
always,
Yeah, I think of the same thing. I think I mentioned that when we first started talking about the labyrinth. It's a very similar kind of concept. Even more chaotic, I feel like.
Well, yeah, and I like the idea of chaoticness because what ends up happening is a huge plot point in this chapter, which I like, and I'll talk about it kind of like structurally, why I think this is a fascinating chapter. But what ends up happening is Grover, like his like old sniffers, like, I smell nature and Pan, and we have to go down this way, but the quest is this way because they're following the spider.
Yeah, literally a crossroads is happening.
It's a fork in the
literal
road.
Sense. Yeah.
I always think of like the fork in the road. I always think of the Muppet movie where there's a literal fork in the road.
Or isn't there a scene in Unfortunate Events where they're like, it's a crossroads, and then he's like, well, it's a little bit more like a fork in the road. He's like, well, it's a metaphorical crossroad.
Yeah, but here's an actual crossroads, and this is where the hero's journey. This is where I'm going to get some comparisons, and people are already going to start groaning. It's a lot like Empire Strikes Back, where you split up.
Ding.
Yeah. Take a sip of your juice. This is where you have your main characters have to split up, and there's going to be two stories. I don't know if there's going to be like an A story and a B story. Most likely, you're just going to keep following Percy. But this is
and
where
then we'll find out what happens, I guess. Yeah, because I don't think they'll do a cutaway to what's happening with Grover.
It ain't going to be like no Pulp Fiction where there's like different things are happening.
Well, I guess they have the empathy link though, so there might be something where after. Well, we'll talk about what happens in the forges that he and Annabeth go to, but. Probably when he goes to sleep, eventually he'll see what's happening with Grover because the empathy link. So that might be how they work that in.
I like that it's deliberate. Rick Riordan's doing here is he's splitting up the gang, which, when horror movie 101, never split up. Don't do it.
It's basically like Fred from Scooby-Doo, like, let's split up, gang.
Zoinks!
Yeah, totally. It's not the greatest advice, and Annabeth is kind of right where she's like, oh, this isn't a good idea. And Percy kind of knows that it's not a good idea, but he also wants Grover to succeed in his quest for Pan. This is kind of like his life's purpose, and he's been feeling very dejected that he hasn't been successful about it. It is kind of an interesting split, too, between the groups, because obviously Percy and Annabeth have a whole lot of history and stuff that they need to unpack. And again, like we mentioned, they're alone for like, what, 5 seconds, and then they're already kissing. So there's a lot going on there. And then, Tyson and Grover have this weird tension because of the Cyclops satyr thing, and that's probably going to be broken down a little bit now that Tyson weirdly volunteers to go with Grover despite the fact that they have that kind of tension, and he obviously might feel a little bit sad about leaving his brother behind, as evidenced by his kind of tearful goodbye when they make that decision.
Yes, totally. And when it comes to like the narrative structure, when you have like a standard sword and sorcery, you have an adventure story, when you have them breaking up, this is where people become more proactive, because then you have, the people have to rely more on their strengths than the strengths of their friends. And that's why I kind of bring up Empire Strikes Back, is because in Empire Strikes Back, there's two stories. You have the Han and Leia story, which them falling in love. Actually, oh my God, this is similar. Oh no. You have Han and Leia falling in love. Yeah, yeah. The Han and Leia are like falling in love. And then you have them, I guess Luke, going on the quest of becoming a Jedi, where he befriends an unlikely person, aka the Cyclops, and they discover like a magical force. And then they meet up again at Cloud City. Oh my God, is Percy gonna lose a hand? Oh no.
I mean, maybe. I could see him lose a hand.
But it's in any structure, when you have a story like this, what's going to end up probably happening is, right now they're the strongest in numbers, but by like breaking up, they're going to end up in their lowest points, is because they broke up in their numbers.
Yeah, well, especially in the labyrinth. I mean, they could get lost in any kind of quest scenario, but especially in the labyrinth, where the whole reason that they have to split up is because there's no guarantee that this like tree tunnel that all of a sudden appears in front of Grover, and he's like, oh, of course Pan is down there. There's no guarantee it's going to still be there when they get back. Like, that's how Annabeth tries to abate this idea that he should go now, is, oh, well, we'll go back on our way to return to Hephaestus and tell him what's going on. We'll stop by at the tree tunnel and check out to see if Pan is there. But that's like not the way it works. Like you said, it's like the stairs in Hogwarts. Everything's always changing. This kind of passageway isn't going to be in the exact same place forever, or even for a very long time.
Or it's going to be like one of those things where they end up mistakenly going in the right direction. Or maybe Hephaestus gives them a situation where that's actually the way to go to Daedalus. What if it's actually that's how you get to Daedalus, is you go in the least likely
through
place?
The Pan thing? Yeah. Maybe he's on the way. That could be something. I mean, you know better than I do because you've read this book, but we'll see, I guess.
Obviously, what's going to happen, like if you're going to look at structure, this isn't even like a spoiler. Obviously, at this point, they're either going to meet Pan, but they're going to have to also meet Daedalus. So it's like, it's almost like a straight line at this point.
They're going to meet both, probably. It's not a question of if they're going to meet these two figures. It's how and when and who's going to be with who when it happens. But I'm pretty certain that that's, two main plot points that are built into the story.
Or maybe, let me put on my little tinfoil hat. Maybe Pan is Daedalus.
Okay, this is getting a bit too tinfoil hatty, even for me. I don't think that makes any sense, but I like your spirit, Cornflake. I really like...
Okay, let me just take out my tinfoil hat then. Okay, it's off.
Why does the tinfoil hat make a squelching noise?
Well, because it has to be all crinkly and stuff, and I made it out of like
it's damp from your brain juices.
Actually, also that's the sound of my skull like reforming itself. It's like those people that have like the necklaces on that make them have like elongated necks. It's like that. Mm-hmm. I just have like a gigantic like cone head now. It's too tight in my brain.
Oh God, it's like those memes of like someone whose brain has grown so much that they're sitting on it like a chair.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we got to move on. Anyway.
Oh man. So what happens is, of course, they take the right track, they take the left track. And Percy and the rest
will
go
be in
before
Scotland.
them.
Yeah.
So pretty much Percy and Annabeth go one way, and Grover and Tyson go the other. And pretty much what ends up happening is that Annabeth and Percy end up like walking for a little bit, and they end up pretty much in a volcano. Nothing bad can befall.
Yep, right in the center of a volcano for sure. I got some reminiscent vibes of like when Bilbo ends up in the goblin mines. It's kind of a similar feeling to me, like the sort of mumbling of these creatures, and they're in this creepy kind of underground setting. The only difference is there's like a lake of fire.
Well, it's more like I guess maybe a better example of this is with Frodo and Sam when they're going up the steps to get to the back gate to Mordor to get up to Mount Doom.
Oh, and they see all the orcs.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of parallels with different fantasy scenes. It's pretty comparable.
Yeah, we could just keep talking about like Lord of the Rings because they do end up. It's like cast it into the fire. No, I was there, Gandalf.
Like the origin of fantasy stories. So it's kind of like this is a different take on mythology, but they're all coming from the same place in a lot of ways, trope-wise.
Yes, and I like how creepy the situation is because, once again, Annabeth is using her brains. Like, I'm going to go invisible and, like, scout ahead. Percy,
is
you do
whatever. Her brains? Because she immediately kind of disappears and just yeets herself over to go and look what's happening. And he's like, wait, what? And she's, like, invisible and it's too late.
Well, B, I think Annabeth is using her brains for this reason because remember what Hephaestus said that basically when he would come, even I guess they would sense him, but like all of a sudden like people would just disappear, or
right, because
the automatons would
sensed gods, and I guess demigods have a different vibe. I don't know.
You would give the ultimate bait, B, which is Percy Jackson is the most biggest idiot in the world. Is gonna like really like walk into a trap, and Annabeth is gonna be there to help him.
Do you think that she thought he'd walk into a trap, or just that's his dumbness?
Oh, most definitely. It has to be. Well, Percy Jackson walks into traps is like, was it in the new Scooby-Doo, like Fred is just obsessed with traps?
Or it's more like Annabeth sometimes gives too much credit to Percy, where she's like, you're going to stay right here and not cause any trouble. And then he's like, I'm not going to stay anywhere, and I am going to cause trouble immediately.
No, B, it's like Temple of Doom when Indy tells Short Round, don't touch anything, and Short Round like backs up and accidentally activates the trap. Don't worry, I'm not going to touch anything.
Yeah, of course, exactly. It's that same energy. Oh, before we get into what happens when they kind of go their separate ways in this setting, do you want to briefly mention the weird thing about Athena and like the brain children?
Oh, I was going to get to that, but I was going to get to that more with like the kissy, lovey stuff because
I guess
what ends up happening,
they talk about
I guess
that first, right?
Yeah, well, the brain's out of the bag at this point. I guess pretty much.
God, what an image. Squish.
Well, so what ends up happening is that they start talking, Percy and Annabeth, and they talk about the birds and the Athena bees.
Yeah, what a weird conversation this is.
Yeah, this just sounds really awkward, Brie. It's like if I started to talk to you about, well, you see, this is actually how my parents actually made me.
When a god loves another person
no,
very
it's
much.
like,
yeah.
This is how I think about this, is how like neckbeards probably wish they procreated with like how smart they are.
With their brains.
With
yeah,
their
it's
brains.
like the sapiosexual people are just like, I just love brains. It's like, that's not okay.
But not to make fun of them, but it's funny to think about. It's like, ooh, we're going to make a love child and it's going to just be with brain power. For some reason, I'm thinking of like just two like laser beams of people's thoughts like connecting to each other.
Yeah, just sort of the two spells being shot out of the wand of Voldemort and Harry and just meeting in the center, and then that's where Annabeth came from.
You know what the sad thing is? My first thought was, what would Sigmund Freud think about this?
Yeah, this is an interesting, weird thing. The conversation's really strange and terse, and basically it comes up because of some sort of one-off comment that Hephaestus says, because then Percy says something Hephaestus said back there about Athena. She swore never to marry, Annabeth said, like Artemis and Hestia. She's one of the maiden goddesses. I blinked. I'd never heard that about Athena before. But then, how come she has demigod children? I nodded. I was probably blushing, but hopefully it was so hot anyway that Annabeth didn't notice. Percy, you know how Athena was born? She sprung from the head of Zeus in a full battle armor and everything, or something. Exactly. She wasn't born in the normal way. She was literally born from thoughts. Her children are born the same way. When Athena falls in love with a mortal man, it's purely intellectual. The way she loved Odysseus in the old stories, it's a meeting of the minds. You She would tell you that's the purest kind of love. So your dad and Athena, so you weren't. I was a brainchild, Annabeth said. Literally, children of Athena are sprung from the divine thoughts of our mother and the mortal ingenuity of our father. We are supposed to be a gift, a blessing from Athena on the men she favors. But, Percy, the spider's getting away. Do you really want me to explain the exact details of how I was born? No, that's okay. She smirked. I thought not, and she ran ahead. Like, what a weird conversation this is.
Hi, do you want to know? Okay, here's the funny thing is that with this, they kind of start to explain a little. See, I don't understand the concept of like when people ask us questions about like procreation for like if two demigods get together. This is
Like,
kind
what
of like,
happens with that?
yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't care about that stuff because once again, this goes back to the rocky road of sexualizing children.
Yeah, that's also not great, Bob.
It's hard to like talk about that stuff because once again, we're not kids anymore. Like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, I don't want to be shipping kids because, like, that's not my business.
that's
sort
not
of.
mine at all. I like that they kind of explain like weird things though. It's like I'm just imagining because it makes sense because once again, Annabeth's dad is like a weirdo and like he just obsesses over like the
Right.
armies
When
and
we
stuff.
discovered his personality sort of in the which book was that?
That was
Titan's
Titan's
Curse.
Curse. Yeah.
Yeah, where we meet him and we see that he's, obsessed with old airplanes and he has all these sort of strategic battle maps and old weapons and things. It totally makes sense that Athena would be into this guy, even though he's kind of batty, because they have this sort of like mad genius about themselves that kind of weirdly mesh, even though he seems a little bit nutter butters,
It actually makes more sense now if you think about it why there's so many Athena kids out in the world. And they're not really from like the biblical sense of like how they make babies. If you want to know, ask your parents or go to the library. And we're not going to explain this conversation to you.
Or watch apparently a weird video that is shown to little sea demons, because we'll get to that later. Yeah, this is like the puberty chapter, I guess, of this book.
Just how awkward is that? Like Rick Riordan's like, well, now I have to explain to kids what puberty is as he takes a swig of cider.
I mean, he's sort of parodying it in a way, and I guess that's because he knows what age group is reading this, so he's sort of because earlier he was making fun of standardized tests, and now he's like making fun of health class, basically. Well, he'll do that a little later in this chapter.
Well, he will, and I think it's funny just imagining like, in my head, I'm just like, I always crack up about like thinking of like weird scenarios. Like one of them is like, just imagine Annabeth's dad and Athena like talking. Is it like weird, like, oh, please give me another math equation?
And then all of a sudden, yeah, just a child appears like out of someone's brain, just like shoots up.
I'm sorry, this never happened before. I'm so sorry. Oh, man. Yeah, and I don't really want to think about it, but I think it's funny that Annabeth is born this way, whereas I'm going to assume Percy's born in the biblical sense.
Yeah, they just have like a normal relationship. But I guess, I don't know. This is kind of a weird bit of lore that I don't exactly know why it's explored now, other than I guess there's like weird, like, tension between him and Annabeth, and so that's why he's asking about this. And I get, like I said, it's kind of like the puberty chapter a little bit. I don't know.
This is my theory about this now. Coming to think of it, this is called Rick Riordan covering his ass. Because later on this chapter, they do kiss.
Right. I guess.
This is like, so I'm guessing it's only Athena can only have brain babies, but I don't think Annabeth could have brain babies.
Yeah, I don't exactly know, and I kind of don't
want to know. Neither do I want to know, but this is where I'm thinking of
don't email us. We don't want to know.
We don't want to know whatever. But it's like Rick Riordan trying to cover his ass. Is like, well, if they do have a baby, it would be better for them to have a brain baby than it would to be, in the biblical sense, which I do not want to talk about, nor do we're gonna move forward. I think we should
move on to more of the weird puberty thing, which is Percy wanders off and accidentally finds what I can only describe as a sea demon health class, which is like a lot to unpack.
When I think of when these sea demons, I think of just gigantic sea monkeys. What you imagine like a sea monkey would look like?
That's kind of what I was imagining at first before they described them as more kind of like seal people, I guess.
Oh my god, they're worse than crab people.
They have like dog faces. I don't know. But yeah, Percy hides in a cart because he hears some voices, and then he gets wheeled into a weird classroom and overhears a teacher explaining. This is really an effective device for for exposition because it's like a lesson plan, I guess, for these like younger sea demons. So they're learning a lot, and then Percy's overhearing it, and that's kind of a helpful thing. If we learn about where the sea demons came from, why they feel betrayed by the gods, why they are sworn to stand with Kronos, all of this stuff is explained in this little vignette, and we don't actually have to have any dialogue or any kind of villain monologuing because they're just like literally conducting a class for younger demons, and he's just like listening in.
I'm not like this. I like that they have this little class because it's like, hey, your body's changing in strange ways. You know, your teeth are getting sharper.
You might be growing fangs and want to eat humans. Yeah.
I like how they have that. For some reason, I'm thinking like Ted Danson because he used to do like a lot of like health education videos like this. That's who they got. Yes, he did. There's a one he did one with God. What's the guy from the Oh my God, it's gonna from the main guy in Arrested Development. Him and his sister.
Larry David?
No, not Larry David. No, Arrested Development.
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm thinking of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Oh, Jason Bateman?
Yeah, and his sister, they did this one called How Can I Tell If I'm Really in Love?
Weird. That's extremely weird.
I had to watch it in health class. This is why I remember, because I was like, hey, that's the guy from Cheers. But what was I getting at? Oh, yes, I like that it has like this weird like 1950s-esque like health class to it.
Yeah, a little announcer voice.
I think it's fun. I think when it comes to it, because Percy hasn't been discovered, and I like that they do give like the exposition because it's much more refreshing than like an evil one of like the seal creatures pretty much being like, and I'm going to tell you my evil plan and why we hate Poseidon, why we hate everybody.
Yeah, it's a different conceit for why they're talking about this, which is a little bit different.
And then it comes back to my theory again about how Rick Riordan's scraping the bottom of the absolute barrel for mythology.
Of like weird deep cut monsters, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Because then like that makes sense because obviously we're trying to dive deep into the lore of different forgotten monsters and why they would have certain alliances with or against demigods, with or against gods. Would they be with Kronos? That kind of concept. So now we fully understand, okay, why do the sea demons like Kronos? Why do they not like Poseidon and Zeus? Oh, because they feel betrayed and they were banished to the pits of Tartarus, blah, blah, blah. They kind of have a similar thing as Kronos does in terms of feeling betrayed by the gods.
Yes. And I think when it comes to it, I do enjoy, like, they do have some good motivation. They're not, like, pathetic. Like, oh, yeah, we helped Poseidon, we helped the gods. And the thanks that we get is pretty much being cast away, even though we practice dark magics.
Yeah, though they were doing dark magic, which again, they're morally gray in a lot of ways, but you kind of understand where they're coming from, and it's established pretty clearly why they would feel the way they feel.
And they're the opposite of Cyclopses. They do the exact same thing. It's just a different like subsection of weird deformed creatures that are really good at making weapons.
Yeah. Well, they hate Cyclopses, right? Because they think that Hephaestus is like a usurper, and that's why they're trying to take back his forges, because they think it rightfully belongs to them, especially because it's like the sea forges or something, and they think that, you know, the Cyclopses are like ugly beings who took over their job of creating like these celestial weapons that they were so good at doing before they were banished to the pits of Tartarus. So there's all this stuff that they have carried with them forever.
These Cyclopses came in, they took our gerbs.
Basically, it's basically that, honestly.
Oh man, we got some like problematic things then. They're just having like picket lines and oh man.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
So what ends up happening is Percy, the lovable idiot that he is, he jumps out and starts like murdering a bunch of them.
Yeah, he just kind of eviscerates them because they go to like look in the cart, obviously, which has a bunch of celestial bronze in it for them to, I guess, tinker with and learn how to make weapons, and he's sitting in it.
But Percy Jackson murders a bunch of them.
Yeah, he just kind of pops out and immediately kills a bunch and then kind of threatens them like, hey, younglings, if you try to mess with me, I'll kill you with celestial bronze. And they kind of back up a little bit long enough for him to like lock them in there, but they're not going to be trapped for long, for sure, because they're going to figure out how to unlock the door.
Well, no, because they're weird seal creatures. I don't know. How do they use the doors if they have flippers?
I don't know. I just really don't want to question it.
Oh, man. No, this is how my brain works. So what
Maybe
ends up
they have
happening...
some dexterity?
No, but I feel like they have to like all like... Oh, I don't want to think about it because I feel like it's going to be really...
They all just have to kind of like smudge their flipper against the little knob and hope for the best. Like, yes. All right, let's get in there, fellas.
Yes, it's just weird, slimy, gross, and disgusting. So what ends up happening is Percy Jackson is able to befuddle them with the door and starts running out, where he accidentally runs into Annabeth, who is invisible.
Well, first he's yelling her name, and she's like, "You dumb, dumb moron, what are you doing?"
Annabeth, I need help.
Yeah, he's just shouting, and she's like, "Hey, buddy, we're trying to be a little subtle here." And he's like, "Well, a little too late for that."
It's like, Scooby-Doo, where are you?
Yeah. I've got a bunch of sea Dobermans chasing after me with weapons and fangs, so,
Oh, man, I'd love it if they were like seal, but also they were like part corgi or something, like some adorable animal.
like a really cute horse. Oh, I just said horse instead of dog. Wow, my brain today. If they were horses, he'd maybe be able to convince them otherwise.
No, he couldn't. There would be no rational thought involved. But yeah, so Annabeth like uncloaks as if this is a video game. I have like 30 seconds of cooldown. And this is where they start to do like, okay, so Annabeth, I need you to start running. I need you to warn Hephaestus. I need you to do all these things so we can get this quest done. I'll hold them back. And what ends up happening, B? I would love you to just explain this.
Well, he's lying, first of all, about him having a plan. He just wants to save Annabeth. So obviously all the Percy Beth shippers are, crying tears of joy because they know that he cares so much about her that he's lying so that way she can escape. And just as they're about to say their tearful goodbye or whatever, she kisses him and he's like, blah, 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 like, goes full Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like, she called me cute situation. And then he describes the situation as saying, "I probably would have sat there for the rest of the day, staring at the lava and trying to remember what my name was, but the sea demons jarred me back to reality," which just shows how much of a dork he is.
Yes, and I think finally this is where I can say this kiss was justified, and finally this romance does feel justified. It doesn't seem forced. They've built it up after so many books that finally it's like, oh my god, yes, we get it.
Oh yeah, it makes sense for sure. Like, I don't think that it's rushed or just in there for the sake of having a romantic plot. Like, they definitely have chemistry, a sort of like will they, won't they, friends / enemies thing that they've had since the first book for sure. I'm not surprised that they have like a romantic thing going on, but he's just such a doofus the way he reacts to her.
To be fair, B, the first time you kissed somebody, or I kissed somebody, you probably felt the exact same way.
Like a doofus? Yeah, I think I probably
Oh my
did.
god.
Yeah.
Are we going to get into this, B? Who was your first kiss?
What, stories of first kisses?
Who was your first kiss?
I think I was in front of a weird hat store in New York City, which is just what a story that is.
Well, B, that's just your aesthetic.
Yeah, right? And I'm right in front of a store where they sell bowlers. And the rest was history.
For me, it had to have been... It was a high school romance that I had. And I just remember her the
precious.
first time kissing me and just being like on cloud nine and like feeling I was going to like throw up because I had like the butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah, you went full Percy. I mean, I think that's normal for sure. And that's kind of what I think Rick Riordan is trying to convey in the character of Percy is like the relatable butterflies in the stomach, goofy, weird behavior that happens when a kid has a crush on somebody. Like, it totally makes sense. He's already just kind of a dum-dum, if we're being honest. Like, he always is like a little bit tongue-tied and nervous. So when Annabeth calls him seaweed brain and gives him a kiss, he's like, bah, 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 and then he has to like go and fight some sea demons right away. So there's a lot going on.
But that's a totally like human response, because I just remember like just standing there and just being awestruck. Because it's like when you're a teenager, when you're like younger and, hormones are racing and you're like, oh man, I'm having these feelings for the first time.
You're starting to sound like that video for the sea demons.
Yes, the exact same thing.
That's totally what this chapter is. It's like the hormone chapter.
It is the hormone chapter. It's the hormone monster. It's like, hey, you wanna kiss Annabeth?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Afterwards, you can get a bubble bath. I can't do it. But pretty much, it makes sense, and it's also so relatable. It isn't like Percy Jackson does like the Popeye thing where he suddenly gets strength. It actually, because Annabeth kissed him, it actually messes him up, and this is why he kind of gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, he almost completely gets destroyed and ripped apart by all these demons because he's really outnumbered because he definitely lied to Annabeth about his plan.
No, that's not even what he's thinking about, B. That's not where his headspace is at that moment.
Oh, well, he's also distracted for sure. So he was probably a goner to begin with, even if he wasn't distracted, because he's like outnumbered by a bunch of demons and he like didn't really have a plan to begin with. He just was trying to let Annabeth escape. And then here comes a friend of ours we haven't seen in a while, which is Deus Ex Aqua, where his magical water powers swoop in and save him again.
What, you mean like 2 chapters ago?
That's true. At least, I mean, in that scenario, he wasn't like in immediate danger the way that he is in this scenario. It is more reminiscent of like when we first see his water powers, where he's playing capture the flag with Clarice, and all of a sudden he becomes like supreme lord of the toilets or whatever. This is kind of a similar thing of like he almost doesn't really have control of his powers, and just out of nowhere he's like summoning this feeling of the ocean, which is even weirder considering there's no direct water around him. They try to like burn him alive with lava, which is really viscerally upsetting, the description of that.
Here's the confusing thing that I just don't like about this is that it's not grounded. It's like, I think the best example of this, if you're going to use water-based powers, is Avatar The Last Airbender, because there's an episode where Katara doesn't have water, so what she uses is her own sweat. Like, there's like, you have to like use things that make sense and logical. I guess, yes, magic is a thing, like a wizard did it, but here it just doesn't make sense because he suddenly gets these powers now. Unless it's a geyser.
The way he describes it, I think it has to do with like geothermal, like water that he pulls from the ground, because he's talking about, because like, isn't this supposed to be like the way that they describe it is, like the ocean forges or something, like they're underground, but there's also like a water table near the volcano.
Yes, but this
like,
is also, you're dealing with like geothermal energy, and to an adult, okay, maybe it makes sense. To like a geologist, like, oh hell yeah, this makes sense. To a kid, what?
Yeah, well, because he doesn't exactly know. Like his description of it is very like, I don't exactly know what happened. Well, first of all, he tries to escape after they're like burning him alive, and he's a little bit resistant to it. Like it doesn't even feel as hot as you'd expect it to be, because he's like a water demigod, and that makes him resistant to burning, I guess. That's kind of the way that they describe it. But he can burn, it's just he sort of has like a buff against it.
Well, because here's the thing though,
yeah,
is that if Rick Riordan wrote Percy Jackson caught on fire, you're telling us that kids could be flammable. And
yeah, exactly. So then this is the description that he talks about. I needed the sea. I felt a tugging sensation in my gut, but I had nothing around to help me, not a faucet or a river, not even a petrified seashell this time. And besides, the last time I'd unleashed my power at the stables, there'd been that scary moment when it had gotten away from me. I had no choice. I called to the sea. I reached inside myself and remembered the waves and the currents, the endless power of the ocean, and I let it loose in one horrible scream. Afterwards, I could never describe what happened. An explosion, a tidal wave, a whirlwind of power, simultaneously catching me up and blasting me downward into the lava. Fire and water collided, superheated steam, and I shot upward from the heart of the volcano in a huge explosion. Just one piece of flotsam thrown free by 1,000,000 pounds of pressure. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was flying so high Zeus would never have forgiven me, and then beginning to fall, smoke and fire and water streaming from me. I was a comet hurtling toward the earth.
So yes, it is a geyser at this point.
Yeah, it's a geyser, I think. Yeah, so he's like summoning water from like the depths of the ground.
Oh my god, I just had the biggest deep cut. This is going to be, I think this is where this is actually an Easter egg. B, this is an Easter egg to Journey to the Center of the Earth, because how they escape at the end of that book is using a geyser to blast out of a volcano.
Do you think that that's the reference, or is it just a coincidence?
It might be a coincidence, but I'm going to say it's a reference, because it's too similar of an idea and a concept.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's some sort of geological thing, and the fact that his powers are getting stronger, so he's able to kind of summon water that he can't see, but he can feel.
Oh no, B! It's because he finally had a kiss from a girl, so that means he's a man now.
Yeah, it's Rudolph logic. He's able to fly.
Oh no!
Because he gets a kiss.
B, what you're telling me is that if I kiss somebody, I have water-based powers. I'm gonna go.
If you already have existing water-based powers, then maybe it helps. I don't know
if that helps or not. Though I always think about, like, when it comes to all this stuff, is that now Percy Jackson has he's in kind of a pickle, and that is the goddess of gravity, which I don't think there's a god for gravity, is there? Because Percy Jackson's going to meet it very quickly.
Well, here's the thing, though. We've had a very similar end of chapter kind of stinger to this, and that was when he goes
He fell
to.
off the gateway arch.
Yes, exactly, the Gateway Arch, and he goes to and he's hurdling, and then he's able to sort of cushion himself in the water, and he's fine. So I'm not
But they
too.
don't establish that there's. But here's the thing, though: they never establish that there's water when you.
He just shot on a geyser. I could easily see him summoning enough water to cushion him, or like some other god catching him, whether
Like
it be
Zeus?
like a new character. Like exactly, there's so many different
Like Zeus owes him
creatures or
one.
gods who could appear and help him. Like even Annabeth could appear out of nowhere
using her brain
and
powers?
catch her. Yeah, like we don't know what's gonna happen is what I'm saying. There's probably gonna be something that swoops in and saves him. He's not gonna like just break all of his bones on the ground. Like that's not how this chapter is going to end.
Well, in my cynical brain, that's how I'd love it to start, and it just becomes like 127 hours.
Oh, he just gets wedged into a rock and then that's how he just dies slowly. It becomes a really weird book after that.
Yeah, it becomes like Hatchet. This becomes kids'
Yeah.
survival book. No, but here's the thing that I've always questioned: like we have all these new powers and stuff. Why doesn't Percy Jackson just have a water bottle or like a basin of water that he just keeps with him?
Yeah, I don't know why. I feel like he could think ahead more about the water power thing. Like he could just carry around like a tube of water with him at all times. I don't exactly know.
A
Yeah.
tube of water. For some reason, I'm thinking of like a pool noodle just filled with water.
Yeah, and the kind with like the hole in it that you
Yes!
just go "Pooh," and you like blow through and then the water comes out. That's Percy's powers.
Yeah, see, he needs a pool noodle. So when Annabeth uses her actual noodle,
Or a
Percy
super
Jackson
soaker.
can super soak or super soaker be. It actually turned into an actual like automatic assault rifle at that point.
You're like, "Pfft."
Oh man, that's great. So Percy Jackson's hurtling to the ground, gravity's coming towards him, and B, what is the name of the next chapter?
Oh geez, okay. The next chapter is chapter 12. I take a permanent vacation. Does that mean he dies? No, he doesn't die.
Oh B, a permanent vacation means so many things, like dying. Like I said, 127 hours. What if like he like falls and all of a sudden like he like meets Nico again? Like it's like he's in like limbo, or like maybe he's, oh no, this would make sense, like he's like unconscious and that's where you get the empathy link with Grover. There's a lot of things that it could be, or he's just dead and there's just Percy all around the state of Washington at this point.
I don't know what a permanent vacation could mean. I guess he's gonna be.
Is he going to meet Chevy Chase? Is this going to be like a National Lampoon's?
a National Lampoon? Yeah, I mean, my best guess would be something like he's going to find himself in somewhat nice circumstances after he like emerges from his coma that was induced by landing on the ground or something.
Or
I don't know. Like,
I figured it out, B, because they went so far into the future now, he's going to land on a hover car.
or it shot him across the country and he lands in the Catskills, and then for the rest of the book, it's just him going on vacation at a resort somewhere.
B, it actually explains how that body fell into your lake.
Oh God, no, that's so dark.
Do you want to explain that story?
I mean, that's the story. I went swimming the other day for the first time in years in this one lake that's right next to my house. Like, I haven't swam in that lake because there's been blue-green algae, and then there was, like, heating oil leaking into it that the EPA had to be called. Like, it wasn't exactly a great swimming spot for the past few years. I finally go to swim in it again with my friend Sarah, and then I get a text from my sister the day later, and she's like, hey, they found a dead guy in the lake, and I'm like, I was in the lake when the guy was still in the water, and that's probably why we saw a dude with a walkie-talkie walking by us at the beach, looking at us quizzically. It's because we were swimming in dead people water, and he didn't want to tell us and freak us out. So that's great. I feel great about that. I'm in a Stephen King novel, apparently. Horrifying.
Or B, that was Percy Jackson. That's the body they're trying to cover up.
Yeah, he flew and he landed in our lake somehow. He shot across the country.
And for some reason, his water powers didn't save him when he bounced. So he died on the first bounce and landed in the lake.
And just splat. Oh, Jesus, it's so dark. Anyway, so that's fun. Hey, come to New York where the lovely Hudson Valley can take you on a whimsical journey of murder. It wasn't murder. I think he just died accidentally, but
Oh my it intensifies, B. We'll get that Camp Crystal Lake vibe.
oh great, now I hear the spooky ice cream man in the distance. That really adds to this story.
Maybe the ice cream man did it, B.
He always did it.
Oh man. So B, you ready to read some emails?
So we got an email from Immortal of Dragons, who says, "Hello again. Long time since I emailed, and I want to say that I love the show and can't wait for Heroes of Olympus. The series is around 2 years old, which is awesome. Also, thank you for the birthday shout out from Days Yonder." Did we give you a birthday shout?
Yes,
oh yeah, I guess
did.
that was a while ago.
That was a long time ago. I think I remember. You know how I remember this is because I think that was the time I actually came to your house to record.
Oh, was it? Wow, that was a while ago. That was almost a year ago.
Oh my god, yeah, that's crazy. But happy belated birthday, or actually happy
upcoming
unbirthday,
birthday. Yeah.
happy unbirthday. But that's rad. Thank you. So I have an email. It says, Zack and B. Hey, I hope this isn't catching you at a busy time. I just want to say I really enjoy your podcast, Radio Camp Half-Blood. And I was wondering if you're interested in doing a collaboration. I run a YouTube channel called Healthy Dose of Fran that features Percy Jackson content such as theories, discussions, and I'd love for you guys to get involved. I've been involved with a few collaboration pieces on my channel, on others, and on a recent podcast, The Legend of the Portal Cast. I'd love to get you guys involved with you guys as a Percy Jackson is my jam.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So there's just more personal information I won't read right now, but it says, looking forward for your next episode and hopefully hearing from you. Best, Fran.
Yeah, you got to forward that to me because I'd love to look into that. I don't think I've ever been in a YouTube collab before. We've only ever really worked with other podcasters, but that could be cool.
That'd be a lot of fun. We won't do any, like, if you're thinking that to come on the show and do like a chapter one, we don't really do that anymore. We did it the one time, and I think we stopped doing that because I just wanted to preserve B, because we actually, someone almost slipped up on a spoiler. So we try to just, just the two of us. So if we wanted to do an episode with us, it would be like a bonus episode where we talk about something that isn't just the chapter that we're reading.
Yeah, or maybe just have a discussion on your channel or something.
Yeah.
We'll look into it. We'll have a discussion.
My people will talk to your people.
And by my people, we mean us, because we don't have people.
And by that, I mean mostly me, a person that writes emails and that's also dyslexic.
It's true.
Yes. So, yeah, if you want to check out A Healthy Dose of Fran, you can find the YouTube page and check it out.
Hi, Zack and B. I'm a week behind, so bear with me. During episode 82, oh god, it's happening, the podcast is nearing 100 episodes, Zack was talking about creation stories and how there are literally hundreds of them, and that got me thinking about how maybe, just maybe, all these stories are confusingly tied in with each other. Maybe there is a chronological order to them, or like a timeline of some sort. For example, the story of Kronos killing his father and cutting him to little pieces and eating his children, etc. And then a few hundred stories later, there was the story of how humans and soulmates were created, that of which Zack almost nailed on the head. Anywho, just a thought. I'll link a photo of the myth below because this email is getting longer by the second. I absolutely love the show. And without further ado, I bid you goodbye. So the explanation says, soulmates, according to Greek mythology, humans were originally created with 4 arms, 4 legs, and a head with 2 faces. Fearing their power, Zeus split them into 2 separate parts, condemning them to spend their lives in search of their other halves.
That's adorable.
Yeah, I have like a mixed feeling about those kinds of stories because I don't like the narrative of romantic love being the only way someone can be fulfilled, and I don't really like the narrative of people saying that romantic love is a way of like filling half of yourself that is missing. Like, you can be a full person without, a relationship. So like, as romantic as that is as a notion, as like it applies to actual people, like I'm not super thrilled about that kind of characterization, but it is interesting in terms of like the Percy Jackson universe and how that might fit into things.
For me, soulmate can be a very ambiguous thing. It doesn't have to just be like a platonic, or it could be like your friend, like you can have like your buddies. For me, I like that like type of like mom, like eat, pray, love type of stuff.
Yeah, that like a real like Instagram like inspirational photo. Yeah, I mean that's literally what the myth is kind of printed on in this email.
I'm sure like there's also things that's like your soulmate could just be like little Rosie over here who's sitting right next to me.
No, I understand, but I feel like the way that it's written definitely makes it seem like it has to be like 2 people, and the implication is that it's romantic. And as like kind of sweet of a concept that is, I don't like to think of any kind of relationship as like a fulfilling of something that you're missing, and more like an addition to the whole person that is you. You know what I mean?
No, I totally understand that, B, and I totally respect your opinion on that stuff. For me, my soulmate is Rosie, so we're bow wowing it and we're having a lot of fun. Yippee-ki-yay, yippee-yi-yo. So we did get another email. It's from Trey. Dear Zack and B, first I'd say if you read this in your episode, can you just say my name Trey? Yes, I just did. I am by far your number one fan. You may know me as the kid who was going to animate the Horsing Around trailer, and I already sent a review regarding that. Before I start off, I want to say sorry if I come off as a little bit obsessive or creepy, especially if this email is read in the same email episode as the email review I sent, so I apologize for that. Now, I just want to say that I'm your number one fan. I love your podcast. It's so fun. I love listening to it. Whenever I listen to it, it feels like I'm having a conversation with a group of friends. This podcast is really important to me because whenever I'm having a bad day or just feeling sad, I turn to your podcast and it helps lift my spirits. It's extremely funny and it helps me get to sleep a lot. I'm glad you have a podcast about my favorite book series to listen to. Now I wanted to address you might want to be able to do chapters of Heroes of Olympus because the layout of it's a little different than in the Percy Jackson series. First of all, many of the chapters in the books are very short, so you might want to put chunks of the chapters together. It's formatted to be a couple chapters for a certain character's point of view, so maybe each episode could be formatted in a couple chapters, a certain character point of view. Finally, the titles of each episode, such as blank, 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 it's not specific, and I would like it to happen. It's just in the name of the chapter from the point of view the character is. Could maybe be the overall not too spoiler short summary of what happens in the chunk of the chapters. Sorry if that come off as a little demanding or anything, but it was just a fun suggestion. Sorry about the long email, but here's some fan art from your number one fan, Trey. The fan art's the one that I sent you.
Oh yeah, the one earlier. Yeah, that's great. I love when people send us fan art, especially of us looking cool, recording in the same place, which never happens, but I like that idea.
Oh, we do record in the same place.
There was that one time.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like I always think of like, this grill is not a grill. And all of a sudden there's like cloud versions of ourselves going across the country. To answer the other part, we haven't decided yet if we're going to do Heroes of Olympus yet. We're going to wait until like the 11th hour to announce if we're going to do that.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We're going to definitely cover more Rick Riordan stuff, but I don't exactly know what order or what exactly we're going to cover. I think it's up to Zack, mainly.
Yeah, because sometimes it might be good to take a break from, like, Percy Jackson. Maybe we could go to the Kane Chronicles, try something different, maybe. Well, we're not going to go to Magnus Chase because you have to read Heroes of Olympus to really appreciate that. So we'll figure that one out.
Yeah, so we'd have to read Heroes of Olympus after. I mean, we have a bit of time to figure it out.
Or we'll do it in, like, the publishing order. So, obviously, the Kane Chronicles came after Percy Jackson. So maybe, who knows? It'll be something that we could do. We'll figure it out. There's only 3 books in the Kane Chronicles, so maybe that's something.
Yeah, so we'll probably do it pretty quickly. I mean, that still will be like probably a year of content.
Yeah, but it's still better than like not having content for a year.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have all sorts of content built into the concept of the show.
What is it, like 18 years at this point?
No, someone did the math. It was
Meme dude.
Who was it?
Memer.
Robert. Yeah,
Robert.
Who runs the meme page on Twitter. He did the math and said it was something like 13 years, which is like, that's crazy. I don't know if we're going to do 13 years. We're definitely going to do several more years of this. I don't exactly know when, if we'll decide to stop.
13 years is like a little too extreme.
Yeah, that's like a bit of a commitment. It probably won't go for that long, but I don't know. We could always do like a thing where later books, instead of doing the chapter by chapter thing, we just read the book and do an episode on it or something like that.
I feel like that would still be a little harder. We could do couple chapters in like a chunk and do it that way.
Maybe we'll figure it out. We'll cross the bridge when we come to it because there's a lot of other content to get through first.
And the main reason why we're like thinking this is, well, Rick Riordan isn't dead yet, and he keeps writing books,
and he might make more books. Yeah, that's kind of the horrifying prospect of doing this show. Is like I love doing it, but
it might be 13 years now. But like when we finish, it's like, oh, it's another 85 years.
That cruel man is trying to keep us trapped here like trapped here like a Daedalus for the rest of our lives, like toiling away.
No, B, we're holding up the heavens like Atlas and he just keeps putting more books on our shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. There's a sort of Sisyphean task like vibe to the idea of doing this for like the rest of our lives, but we're definitely going to keep doing it for the time being, for the foreseeable future.
Don't worry if you're like worried that the show's ending. It's not ending remotely soon.
Definitely not soon. Definitely not within the next 2 years.
But like maybe and obviously within the next 50 to 80 years, yes, it will end.
Probably, ideally, we'll be done by then.
Unless we're like spooky skeletons. And or no, maybe someone will like deep fake us, like our voices, like they did to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And someone will just type in episodes.
Exactly, because we have so much recorded audio of us that someone can just sort of Microsoft Sam some sort of episode of us riffing together.
I'm sure we've had like enough points where we could just say the exact same things over and over again, and no one would care. But B, did we get any iTunes reviews?
Yeah, we got a couple. We got one from Trey, who just sent us that email, who says, "Hello, Zack and B. It's me, the guy who sent you 2 reviews about yet to happen Horse and Around fan animated trailer, and who sent you a voice message. Hope I don't seem creepy to you. I'm so sorry that I keep forgetting to start on that animated Horse and Around trailer. I'm trying to get started on it soon, but in the meantime, in the future, I will send an email of some fan art I already drew. When you get those, one will be incomplete because I messed up on it and I just never came around to finish it, but I keep an eye out for an Interruptus design and some general fan art. Y'all are so funny. Trey, P.S. I'm still waiting on the next Unfortunate Associates episode. When will that come out? When will that come out?
Only the ancients know.
It's hard to say. I just started a new job. It's up to Mia, I guess, and when we figure out time to record. But
that Mia's a busy beaver.
That's always up in the air. We do obviously kind of have a ticking clock when it comes to that show, so it's gonna be wrapping up pretty soon because there's only so much content left. We did record an episode about... God, now I can't remember what episode it was. About the Grim Grotto already. So I don't know when that's going to be edited and up and on the feed, but we have that recorded and ready to go. I don't know about ready to go, but not once it's edited, it'll be out there. And then we have only really a couple more episodes to do and maybe like a kind of wrap up thing. And then, yeah, that's kind of the end of the show, which I'm a little sad about, but you know, it was a good run and I'm happy I did it.
The end of the end of the end of the end. How does
yeah,
it
literally
say?
The end.
What is it? I can't remember the there's actually like the motto in the end. It's like something like that, right? The last Beatrice letter or dedication.
Oh, I can't
remember what it is, but it's something like that where it's like basically like, and this is the end of the end. Something like that, but
yeah. I can remember the Philip Larkin Be the Verse poem, including the part that got cut out, which has the F word in it. Good job, Lemony Snicket, for giving us a poem in a children's book that definitely has the F word in it. You just cut it out.
Oh, what, fudge?
Yep, it sure does.
Oh, man, but yeah, you know, it's sad when things end. It's happier when things begin.
Yeah, but it's also, a happy thing because I feel like we really put a lot of work into it and I loved doing it and it was cool to meet Mia and start podcasting. I mean, that's why I podcast. It's why I met you. There's a lot of, good things that came out of Unfortunate Associates. I'm sad it's ending, but I'm happy it happened.
Yeah, and if you want to watch like Mia's show, go listen to Cynical Cartoons. It's a very well-produced show.
Oh yeah, Cynical Cartoons is pumping out episodes again and they're really good. Mia is kind of has taken on a slightly new approach in her, like, I guess, new, I wouldn't call it season, but like she's
Revival.
On a new network now and everything. And yeah, exactly. It's like, don't call it a comeback. She's been here for years. It's a really good show.
So yeah, check that out. Thank you so much, Trey. Thank you so much for that lovely fan art. And thank you so much for the future. We love our fans. Like, they're the best. Honestly.
Yeah, the fan art gives me life. It's really good.
Yeah, that's how you say so youthful. Every time our fans are so like nice. Every time they think about our show, like B actually gets slightly younger, so it's gonna be like the Benjamin Button disease.
Please stop being so nice. I look like a baby.
Actually, yeah, it was like the Benjamin Button thing. I actually had to ask B, and it's like I have to have nap time after we record this.
Yeah. I literally took a nap today, so like please do not call me out like this. I do have gray hair now.
What?
Though, which is another
Are you
weird...
being serious?
Yeah. No, I'm being serious. I just found 2 white hairs on my head. My mom like started going gray in her 20s, so it's not surprising. I'm gonna start to get white hair.
You're gonna start rocking that gray,
which is crazy. I'm gonna look like the most ancient baby. I can't wait.
You're gonna start rocking that gray hair. For some reason, I'm thinking of you like in like a futuristic city with just the gray hair.
Or I was gonna say I'm gonna look like the tiniest Atticus Finch.
Yes, actually, that should be what you should do. That's your new aesthetic, tiny Atticus Finch.
Gonna just live my life in a little linen suit. It's gonna be really great.
As long as you just don't live in Maycomb, I think everything will be A-okay.
Yeah, not a great place to live.
And I was to become a ham. So we did get another iTunes review. Actually, it just came out today as we're recording this. and it's from the Gray Should that says, "Great show with fantastic hosts. Zach and B are great, and this is a great podcast." Oh no, B's getting younger. Stop it.
I'm melting. I'm becoming a primordial ooze. I am no longer a baby. I am just a twinkle in my father's eye.
Oh no, I mean, he's out in the garage right now. I was like, Ash, so I don't know how that works.
Yep.
And as you're saying, that's just like, I just age gracefully like spoiled milk.
Apparently, I age like Peeps in that I don't.
No, you just expand like when you put you in the microwave. Stop.
Yeah.
And then because once you like get out of the microwave, we just mold you to look younger. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Or I was going to say I just sort of get crusty. Like an old Peep. Just really, I become hardened to the world.
Oh man, that's great. Well, B, I think that kind of wraps up the show. If we're going to talk about moldy old crusty Peeps. Though that should be like a rapper name, Krusty Peep.
Yeah, that sounds like a rapper name. I feel like it might already be.
So if you are Krusty Peep, we'd love to have you on the show.
Or if you're a SoundCloud rapper with that exact name, we'll have you on, and I don't know what we'll talk about, but we'll figure it out.
Well, you'll make her own intro. We'll make her intro for our show.
Oh yeah, just like a rap about how we're best friends.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to another wonderful episode of Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. B, where can they find you?
You can find me on the Tumblr that I never use at twinpoetry.tumblr.com. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at bkellygorman.
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Suda41. That's SUDA41. If you want to follow my other show, The Film Cult, is the podcast where we try to find the diamond in the celluloid rough. This week I talk about Who Killed Captain Alex, the first action movie from Uganda where everyone knows Kung Fu. It's great. It's awesome. I love it. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphalfblood@gmail.com. We read all our emails on the air. We also have t-shirts available at TeePublic, so just type in www.teepublic/radiocamphalfblood for some amazing shirts. I think we actually sold one, so there's someone out there with a shirt out in the wild.
Aside from my mom.
Yes.
You can match my mom now. I still need to get one, honestly. I feel like it's just like a really cool design. Well, part of me is like, do I want a shirt with my face on it? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of do.
For me, I'm like, do I want to be that person that walks around a convention with my face on it?
Maybe you do, because it's a really cool design. Meg did a good job. I think it's awesome.
Well, it's a good thing I'm a narcissist. So, well, guys, I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And let's keep staying mortal. See ya.
Bye, guys.